Okay. I'd like to call to order the Legal and Finance Committee meeting for the City of Rapid City at 12:30 p.m. on October 28th. And the first thing we have to talk about is you are expected to wear a mask. Please, if you're not wearing a mask, please put your mask on over the nose and mouth. We're trying to keep our COVID numbers down, and as everybody knows, we're living in a petri dish right now, so please be careful. All right, so roll call and determination is our first order of business. Determination of a quorum.
Drew?
Here.
Armstrong? Here. Jones? Here. Solomon? Here. Stroman for Lehman. Here. We have a quorum.
Great. Next up is adoption of the agenda. Moved by Jones, seconds by Armstrong. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? And the agenda is adopted. Now it's time for general public comment, a time for the members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. I have no general public comment at this time, so general public is now closed. I would like to remind anybody that is here that's not familiar with how we accept comment. If you're going to make a comment, you go right over there and pick up a form, fill it out, and hand it right up here. And when your issue comes up, you can speak on that. You might change your mind. You might say, oh, I don't want to speak on that. That's fine. But if you think you want to, this is the time to get in, not right before we get to the item, okay? So get your form now and get it in. Thank you. Now we're looking at consent items 1 through 11. I have no comments or requests for speakers on 1 through 11, so public comment is closed. We go now to the members present to see if they'd like to pull any items for further discussion today. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Anybody here? Oh, Jason Solomon, excuse me. Jason.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 5, please.
Excuse me, could you say that again?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 5, please.
Thank you. Item 5 has been pulled. Seeing no other requests, I need a move to accept the rest of the items with the exception of number 5. Moved by Jones, second by Armstrong. All in favor of examining all the items, passing all the items in consent with the exception of number 5, say yes. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, and so the agenda is now approved with the exception of item 5. We'll go to item 5, Human Resources. Authorize Mayor and Finance Director to sign 2021 renewal with Wellmark BCBS for City Health Care Plan, and I go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I ask some questions of our Human Resources Director? I
Yes,
see
go
he's in
ahead.
the audience. Mr. Stroot, thanks for being here today. And,
Sure.
Sorry I didn't contact you ahead of the meeting, but I guess, first of all, can you kind of give us an overview for the council and for maybe the city employees that might be tuning in on what the changes are to our healthcare plan?
Sure. Historically, we've offered one plan, and that plan is written into contracts with our union representatives, and so there's certain structural things that we're bound by, but we need to make some changes to help the fund balance. Now, we're a self-funded plan, which means we collect our premiums and we pay out claims through Wellmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. But by doing so, we're responsible for maintaining that fund balance. And so I've been working with the mayor and the rest of the healthcare committee and the department directors to come up with a 4-year plan to incrementally make some changes to help stabilize that fund. Because as you could see in my letter, we've had a kind of a run of bad luck. We've had some high dollar claims. We've had, just health insurance is, for lack of a better term, a gamble. We have over 900 employees and their families on there. And so we've had some bad luck in the past couple of years, and so that fund balance is decreasing. And in order to stop that, to stabilize it, we're coming up with 2 plan options. One, which is going to be more expensive, but have a little bit better benefits to it, and then one that's a little less expensive that meets our contractual obligations with our unions, but the benefits aren't quite as rich. And so then we're going to take, if this were to be implemented this year, then we're going to take 2021 and we're going to start looking at different things that we can do to incentivize better healthcare choices through our employees, perhaps some things that would incentivize them to have their spouses go on a different plan if that's an option. So we're going to continue to try to be creative on maintaining this fund balance.
Okay.
Sorry, that was very long-winded.
So one of the concerns I would have, just from the business standpoint, retaining employees is one of the best ways to save on money, because high turnover and the cost of replenishing employees can be difficult.
Sure.
Working for the city, especially in contentious times like this, can be very difficult, so there's a risk, in particular with our first responders, I'd say, but even beyond that, people like you work for the city, have to stand up here and answer questions for the public. It could be tough. So is this a diminishment of what's their total out-of-pocket by making these changes to our city employees? Is it diminishing the amount of take-home pay they would have because of the amount that they have to put into the insurance plan?
Each plan, so what we're calling the base plan, which is the lower tiered plan, that is going to raise by 5%, and that was voted on in the spring by the healthcare committee. So yes is the answer to that. If you have a spouse or you have a family, there's a 5% increase to your premium monthly. Now the more robust plan, the enhanced plan, if you choose, is more expensive than 2020's plan. But there is an option for every employee to either maintain their premium or see a 5% increase.
Okay, but probably more out of pocket, I imagine, on deductibles and things like that, usually when you have those options.
Potentially not. It's, what we're doing is we're actually shedding our grandfather status. And so what grandfather status was is when the ACA passed, there was an option to leave your plan as is, and you wouldn't have to accept all of the changes in the ACA. We did that for 10 years, and it really wasn't designed to do that for 10 years. So by shedding our grandfather status and going to the more full ACA robust benefit package, there's a good chance for the majority of our employees they're actually going to pay less over in a year than they would currently, because we're covering things at 100%, like preventative services, so colonoscopies, mammograms, things like that. And then we also are moving to an all-in copay, which means when you go to the doctor, you pay your $30, and then there's no co-insurance that follows that based on that visit. So,
all right, in my limited time left, I just want to make sure that we take care of our employees. So are we doing any compensation studies in addition to this to make sure that their salaries are keeping up with, as the rising cost of healthcare goes up, that also with inflation and everything else, that their salaries are?
In late 2019, we did a wage study for the non-union and the AFSCME folks. We currently have wage data for our police folks, and then we currently have a contract with fire that goes through 2022, so their increase is already locked in. And so Pauline can correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have non-union wages going up in January 1st, and we are in the first part of January, and we're working with our AFSCME folks to hopefully lock in a contract that will see some increases for them. So to answer your question, yes, we are working on that.
All right, I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you,
Nick.
Go ahead, stay there, Nick. I've got a question for you. When you were developing this plan and looking at this, did you take into account any COVID-related health care problems that we will probably see and maybe will increase our amount of claims?
Yeah, we definitely took that into consideration when we had to raise things like out-of-pocket maximums. It's not popular to do, but we have that fine balancing act between making sure our employees have affordable care, and like Jason said, it's still an attractive place to work. However, we can't be so generous that fund end up going broke, and then I'm back here asking you for literally millions of dollars to help this healthcare
And
fund.
you know that's not going to happen.
Yeah, right, no, right. So, but we are, to your point, Councilwoman, we are seeing what's called a delayed COVID delay. So people with their knee surgeries or different surgeries, they waited March, April, May, June, and then they started going in July, August, September. So we're getting hit pretty hard right now, but we're hoping that, and not even COVID related, COVID delayed related. So we're hoping that levels out and we can get a better picture of what our true costs are going to be in early 2021.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting.
Yes,
So,
very much so.
Thank you, Mr. Strout, and we are going to go to a vote. I didn't have a motion on this. Second? I need a second. Move to approve by Armstrong, second by Jones. All in favor? Those opposed, same sign, and it carries. That takes us out of the consent items and on to non-consent items. Items 12 through 15. Public comment is now opened. We have a number of speaker requests for item 14, so we're just going to go right to those right now. And so as I call your name, please come up, give your name and your address, and then we'll start in. Valeria Big Eagle, please.
Hello, my name is Valeria Big Eagle. My address is 922 North 7th Street, right here in Rapid City. So today I am before you in support of the land swap in the 3 parcels of land that we have found in the Rapid City Indian School Lands Project. And for the past 70 years, our Unchis, our grandmothers, and our elders have been asking for, native land so that we can do some development that will be a great benefit to the Native community. We have found that in this land investigation for the 1,200 acres for the Rapid City Indian School, that none of that land went to quote-unquote needy Indians. And so this is one way to start that healing process right here with the city of Rapid City and the Native community. So thank you.
Thank you, Valeria. Valeria. I'm sorry about that. This is your timer right here. So you get 3 minutes, it goes green, then when you're getting close to the end, it's yellow, and then when you're out of time, it goes to red. So next up is Billy Joe Brown.
Hello, I'm Billy Joe Brown. I live at 110 East Watertown, Lot 38 in Rapid City. I was born and raised here. I'm Glala Lakota Sioux. And under this land swap that they're talking about, this is the first time I ever heard about what they're trying to do. So I would like to know more information on it before I vote on anything. But I don't see no BIA officials here, which they should be here because this is a BIA matter. So I would like, before we go, we're going to go on with this, but I would like to see some of those kind of people here with us today. And I do know we have a very, very high, rent is so high in here. Today, before I came to this meeting, I called 9 places to try to get my granddaughters from being evicted by Friday. And I walked into a major wall. TRIA, the Retired Enlisted Association, my granddaughter's great-grandfather was the founder of it. She worked there. They let her go, but they didn't let her go as a floater. So she doesn't have no kind of income. She will not go and apply for welfare. We're not that kind of people. If we got to go and wash toilets to get our money, that's what we're going to do. But this land that we're talking about, we need it for these people that can't afford to live anywhere. My granddaughter pays $750 for a broken down 2-bedroom trailer. And her light bill was $345. We need help, and it's not just for the Indians. Everybody in here, we need help financially. She can't get food stamps. She can't get welfare. There's no help out there for her. So unless you guys are going to open up another shelter and put them in a shelter, because on Friday, that landlord said if she doesn't have her rent money, she's out. I do not have the money to help her. I'm barely helping myself. I'm living right now in a trailer house with no kitchen. I have no kitchen in my trailer house. I can't even invite them over to feed them. But with this land swap, if it's going to help everybody, Indian, non-Indian, we had a community center here that was for all of us. It wasn't just for Indians. We had white people there, we had black people there. We had 2 cops on the Rapid City Police Force. That was awesome to us. They told us, Sonny Larby and Sam Roach, they said, we don't work, you guys don't work for us, we work for you. And now it's not like that. I have nothing against any cops. They brought home 2 of my grandchildren. One at midnight, her ride never showed up. So after work, they brought her home. The other one was my grandson wasn't supposed to be at North. They brought him home to me. So I respect them. But this housing stuff, we all need to come together and try to sort this out. But whenever I get done here, I'm going to go make more phone calls, trying to get them some kind of help. Thank you.
Billy Joe, there might be some people that can talk to you here. Laura wants to buzz in here about your housing thing.
Just real quick, I know we have to stay online. If Ms. Brown can just
Brown.
wait until the end of this meeting, and I can tell you about some resources that we have that can address your immediate needs.
Okay,
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. Next up, Bev Warren.
Hello, council members and finance members. I am Bev Warren. My address is 1421 Cherry Avenue, number 27, in Rapid City. I'm a Lakota elder from Pine Ridge. That's where I was born and raised. And I came to Rapid City after my father came home from serving in World War II. So that was quite a number of years ago. And we knew, evidently my parents knew, I was about 9 years old at that point in time. My parents knew that we were not wanted here, evidently, because they brought their own home, which was a tent. And the only place we could live at that time in the 40s was the Oshkosh camp along Rapid Creek, which is now Founders Park. We lived there because we knew we wouldn't have a place to live unless we brought our own tent. That's what we did. And I remember as a child living there, as long as we were on the camp, we were surrounded by our people. So it reminded me of the extended family setting that I grew up in back in Manderson District. So I didn't feel unsafe. I didn't feel marginalized. Until I went downtown Rapid City with my father one day. It was early evening, and I wanted to see the streets of Rapid City. It was exciting to me because I hadn't been in a city before. And as I walked down the street with him, I saw a sign in the retail store window that said no Indians allowed. I was 9 years old. I could read. And it hit me as being wrong. But I didn't know how to decipher the total meaning of those 3 words. And I didn't like it. So I stopped short, and my father stopped, looked at me, and he said, "Taku," well, what? So I just pointed at the sign and I said, "Takwe." Why? And at that time, I didn't fully realize how wise his answer was until he said, "Because they don't know us." I would venture to say the majority of the non-Native community still don't know us. What we're doing regarding the land swap is to help ourselves. We want this land swap to be completed so we can work on issues that we all face today, and you just heard a story of one of those issues, of housing. This is the beginning of our ability as Lakota and other Native people and our allies to do something positive, to grow this city into a friendly, good place for any little 9-year-old Lakota kid to come here and not have to feel that feeling of no Indians allowed. That made an impact on my life, obviously. But I knew who I was because my extended family, my grandparents told me being Lakota was good. My grandfather sang at dawn and at dusk with those lessons and prayers. I still know who I am, but I want our future generations, all these young people here, to not feel that way anymore. And part of this healing will be to acknowledge that we have put in a lot of work. I am so proud of these young Lakota people who are quite grounded traditionally, but educated in the Western way. We now know your language. We know how to approach in a good way for this community at large, so that the national Native community, as I lived in other states, don't look at Rapid City as racist city. We don't want that anymore. I know you don't, and we don't. We can live together well, and this land swap will be a solid beginning. It's not just talk, it's action, and that's what we need. Pilamaya piuchakipi. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't need to butt in or anything. Can I just leave my name and my phone number because she just called, she needs a ride, so.
Okay, sure. We'll go next to Robin Zephyr. Ruben Zephyr? No.
Robin Zephyr,
Okay.
3020 Sunny Hill Circle, Rapid City, South Dakota. I'm in Minikoju, Lakota from South Dakota. I'm here in support of agenda item number 14, the land swap. I've been a part of the group called the Rapid City Indian School Land Project for the last couple of years, and we were honored and privileged to stand up for the people that we have tried to help in that regard, to honor all of the children that had passed while they were there at the school, but also to give honor to those that fought so hard to try to seek some type of remedy in equality and existence and survival. The statute that is at the base of this overall issue is a 1948 statute. It's very clear in its nature. We are only standing here by following in the footprints and the footsteps of those that went before us. We are here to try to carry forth the grand commitment to them and to their spirits. I know that many of you have heard this story for the first time just recently. Many of the Lakota, Nakota, Dakota people in South Dakota know these stories, for this is not a singular story in our histories. This is only one example, but it is a tragic example. I am the descendant of my great-grandfather. His name is Mato Niampi. He is saved by bear. Recently, my brother and I were honored and privileged to write his life story in a book called Warrior Is. And we spoke quite in detail and emphatically about our spiritual connection to Grandmother Earth, Unchi Maka, and to the land, and to the communality of human beings. And so I'm here just as a common man, but as a volunteer to this group. But I'm here as a Lakota, and I'm here as a resident of Rapid City, a small business owner myself. And I would like to just reach out to each one of you on this committee and on this council for making this decision to come to accept the resolution and to bring us forward into the 21st century and beyond. But I was taught graciously and respectfully by my grandmother to do things in an honorable way, and if there is a chance at resolving issues with diplomacy, to do so. And I just ask that you look into your hearts and your spirits, and regardless of your faith, your background, whether you're Christian, Jewish, Native spirituality, Buddhist, We all share a commonality and parallels in this world in existence and survival. One day we will all meet in the spirit world. And I just would like you to picture that we're all sitting around that great campfire on the other side camp. And we're laughing and we're sharing stories of our life and our commitment and our duties. And we can all look at each other when we're sitting around that campfire, and we can share with each other, looking in each other's eyes and in our spirits, and say, we're proud of what we did when we could, and we had the opportunity to do it to make lives better for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Karen Mortimer.
Good afternoon to the council and city employees here, and thank you so much for all you do to help make Rapid City a better place. So I'm here today to, my address, Karen Mortimer, 4280 Skyline Ranch Court, Rapid City. Lived in Rapid City longer than I can even count, longer than my native home of Minnesota. So I'm here today to ask you to carefully consider the approval of the resolution to resolve these 3 outstanding deeds. I've been involved with the Minaloosahan Okola Kichiapi ambassadors since 2014. That group has been working to address the problem of the lack of or broken relationships between the Native and non-Native community. And we brought together Native and non-Native leaders in our community over time to work on this issue. Not an easy issue to work with, but some amazing relationships have been built. I began working with Heather Dawn Thompson and Kibbe Conti, and subsequently Dr. Eric Zimmer, on unfolding this very, very important history in our community, which many of us don't know, particularly the non-Native community. And I know that as you've learned about this, and certainly as I've learned about it, our eyes became wide, and we realized that we have a history that's been untold. These 3 deeds are symbolic. They're legally important, and they must be dealt with, but they're also symbolic of this broken relationship. It is time for us to address this directly. The creative solution that has been sought through this resolution is something I hope you consider very, very carefully versus a litigious result. The idea of this project has always been to be respectful to everyone involved, all stakeholders. So thank you for your careful consideration in moving this on to Monday's council. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And last up, we have Troy Fairbanks.
Do I have to use the speaker or?
Yeah, please,
Okay.
because we're recording this and then.
Oh,
it gets-
okay.
Yeah.
My name is Troy Fairbanks, also known as Tatanka Apsipsicha. I'm the 6th-generation grandson of Chief Sitting Bull. I live at 110 East Watertown, Lot 32, Rapid City, South Dakota. Good afternoon, Council. Indian and white relations throughout Rapid City has been subjective to a lot of different avenues. And those objectives over a lifetime, my lifetime, have been approached by the Rapid City Council on many different avenues, such as education, economical development, which I commend you, and along with our past governor, Governor Dugard, who allowed for the very first time for the Lakota language to be taught and put into public schools. And Rapid City's been on the forefront of making that acknowledgement and towards land agreements with these three that are coming in front of you, I know you're going to do the right thing. I already know that. We're going to work together as a community to better our community. Recently, I was asked to go to a few meetings in the past couple of years. I want you to know who I am. I was one of the ones who advocated with the MacArthur Fund. I had an interview out of Washington, D.C. and New York by the MacArthur Fund. I wrote a 30-page program, which I called the Medicine Wheel, which helped beat heroin and meth addiction for Rapid City. I was the one advocate that you probably never knew. I was the one who got you your $2.5 million for the CARES program down across the street from the courthouse. The two individuals who wrote that grant were the court-appointed attorneys, one that's been a court-appointed attorney his whole career. God bless him. I understand what the BIA said. In the Treaty of 1868, we have to have resolutions from the tribes to be able to come in and to reach this, and that there's jurisdictional issues. Let's bypass that for a minute. Let's look at our community as a whole, as Native and Indian together, because I think we can come to an agreement. See, I'm involved. My company is called the Buffalo Dreamers, and I'm involved with some people out of Oregon and across the continental United States that want to bring in a wellness center for non-natives and natives alike. And basically what we've been talking about here, a community program. We're not just talking about the Lakotas, we're talking about our entire community. We need your help to do the right thing. In our heritage, a lot of people don't talk about this. We don't have racism in our heritage. And you know who lived with us when he was a young man? The Lord Jesus Christ. No one talks about that, about Peshla. Council, I want to thank you. These corporations that want to come in and help us, the Lakota, if we get this resolution passed, I'll guarantee that they'll come in and help you and help our community with not just 100,000, with millions of dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of our public comment. And so we'll go on with some of our regular business until we get to item 14. So on the non-consent calendar, now the public comment is closed. We go to Finance Department, second reading and recommendation of ordinance number 6446 regarding supplemental appropriation 7 for 2020. Move to approve by Solomon. Second by Jones. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Item 13, second reading and recommendation of ordinance number 6448, an ordinance to amend provisions concerning purchasing procedures and delegation of purchasing authority by amending sections in Chapter 3.04 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. We're a quiet bunch today. Move to approve by Solomon, second by Armstrong. Don't be so excited. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? And the motion carries. That brings us on to item number 14. Seems what we're here today for. The approved resolution of number 2020-084, a resolution to resolve 3 outstanding deeds related to the Rapid City Indian Boarding School lands. Okay, was Heather Dawn Thompson going to make a statement? I'm not going to proceed without her in the room. Okay, thank you. Heather Dawn, this is Heather Dawn Thompson, and this being a big part of your issue, I would give you some time to speak on this.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Apologies for leaving. I was just visiting with the elder.
Okay, thank you.
Legal and Finance Committee, thank you so much for your time today. As my colleague, Mr. Zephyr, said, we appreciate that this is a newer conversation to some of those on the committee. But many of you have been negotiating with us and meeting with us and going to these meetings for the last 4 years with the rest of the community. And we appreciate you. This is a hard conversation. It was hard for all of us too. And we wanted to thank the grandmothers who entrusted us with their legacy that they have been fighting for over 70 years. We are 100% volunteer. You've probably heard the story a million times, but in the most modern iteration of this project, the elders came to us to help find the graves of the children that were buried in unmarked graves at the boarding school. And in doing so, we uncovered all the other land issues that were related to the boarding school lands. It was not a new issue to the elders in the community. They have been raising this essentially every decade since 1948. They have been requesting investigations. They have been writing to Congress. They have been writing to city council, to tribes, and unfortunately it went largely unheard. We are their grandchildren. We were specifically sent to go away to school to obtain Western education so that we could come back and work for our community. And in doing so, we now have lawyers and realtors and historians and educators on our team that understand these land documents and these land transactions in a way that perhaps was not communicated in the past. So when we discovered these difficult issues, we of course met with the Department of Interior. One of the speakers brought up the BIA. It is the Department of Interior's legal right to these parcels, to the reversion, and they have been engaged in the conversation from the beginning. And as you know, you have in your possession the letter that came from those initial conversations after they reviewed all of the documents and found that in fact these 3 parcels, which are the subject of this resolution today, were subject to reversion back to the Department of Interior. The 3 entities that are on those parcels do not wish that their parcels revert back to the Department of Interior. The Native community is a little more ambivalent about it. Those are beautiful parcels and beautiful buildings on them, and reversion is not such a terrible thing. But we understand that respectfully that is not the desire of those entities, nor of the city as far as the conversations that we have held. And so we have worked fastidiously for the last 3 years to find a solution. Per the resolution, there is another provision in that statute, and to be clear, the statute only deals with the 1,200 acres that used to be the Rapid City Indian Boarding School that goes from Mountain View to Canyon Lake. It deals with nothing else. But there is a second provision in that statute that does allow those 3 parcels to be swapped or exchanged for other land within or near Rapid City, as long as that land is used for needy Indians, which is an unfortunate term of art at the time, but it means what it says, Indians that need things. And so we have had over 100 presentations and meetings, including a series of very specific meetings last year in 2019 to obtain as much community input as we could. And the community overwhelmingly, and at least those who voted for a land exchange that would empower the creation of a Native American community center, something that would help the entire community and that everybody would be able to utilize. The secondary component of that was, as our speaker said, we have had small community centers in the past. They have been difficult to finance and maintain. And we didn't want it to be dependent on government funds or taxpayer dollars, et cetera, going forward. And so to make it self-sustaining, the second component of the resolution, as you saw, is to help capitalize a community development corporation. And that sole purpose of that community development corporation would be to generate revenue, of which would subsidize the community center. The 3 top vote getters in the community for what areas of business that community development corporation could invest in were housing, which, as you've heard many times, is a huge need in our community, a hotel meeting space, particularly for tribally focused meetings, and a culturally based, art-based tourism type business. And so that would be our proposal that has those three things. In the end, this is a negotiation between the city and the Department of Interior. It is the Department of Interior that owns the right to reversion. The Department of Interior in the 2017 letter encouraged the city and the school district to be creative and to work with the Native American community. And that's what we have done. We have brought forward to you what we think is a very creative proposal that is a win-win for the entire city and helps resolve a 70-year-old legal battle in a very positive way that doesn't involve litigation. I'll stop there and answer any questions you might have.
Well, first up, we have Pat Jones, and I believe you have questions or comments? Okay, Pat Jones.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Heather, how would you like me to refer to you? Heather, Ms. Dawn Thompson?
Heather's fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Obviously, this is a very important topic, huge thing, biggest thing on the plate right now for some time. And so we, as members of the Legal and Finance Committee of the City Council, have been discussing it amongst each other in various ways the last several days, well, since you folks did your presentation. Many questions have come up, many questions have been answered, many questions aren't answered at this time. And so in the interest of just total fairness and transparency, I wanted you to know, obviously we've been talking about it and working on it. That's what we're here to do. We need to do our due diligence. Some of the questions I'm going to ask you've already been asked, but I think it will be good for all of us to hear your responses in this kind of forum that will give more people the right information as we make decisions to move forward. So if some of these questions seem like a rerun, maybe they are, but these, as we discuss it and talk amongst ourselves and talk amongst other people, these themes and these questions continue to come up. So I'm just kind of compiling the similar questions and thoughts that a lot of us have had, okay? So I wanted to do a little background first on that before we started, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. And Your Honor, our Councilman, we welcome your questions. It's a complicated and important issue, so thank you for your questions.
You bet. So the first one is, there are some of us are not sure exactly who you and your group represent in bringing this forward and the authority that you have to do this. When the initial presentation was made, I asked you if you worked for the Department of Interior. Your response to me was you represent the Department of Interior. And I'm still very unsure what that means. Has the Department of Interior given you legal authority to act on their behalf to bring this forward?
I apologize, Councilman, if I said that. I actually don't recall that question and that answer. That would be incorrect. So to clarify, in Lakota we say ikchewiya or ikchewichasha. We are common women and common men. We are no more or no less than anybody else. There are approximately 100 of us. We come from every background. We are grassroots, we are lawyers, we are doctors, we are teachers, and we are Native American community members who think this is important.
So you are a group of people who has chosen to gather to bring this forward?
That is correct.
You do not represent any other organization, any tribe, any private or public group or government entity of any kind?
That is correct, with the caveat that coalitions are incredibly important, and so we try to build coalitions with everybody in Rapid City and anybody that is interested in the topic, but we do not work for nor represent anybody other than ourselves.
Absolutely, and I agree, coalitions are vital. I'm just trying to clear these things up so we can know the exact correct information as we move forward.
Thank you.
You bet. So, your group is a group of people organized to do this.
Correct.
Could another group of people come forward and organize and do the exact same thing that you folks are doing?
With 10 years of really hard work and 100 volunteers, they absolutely could.
Or they could pick up where you guys are at right now and come
Yes.
forward and say, we want this land. We see this was done and we want this land.
They could. In the end, as we've said from the beginning, this is a Department of Interior decision. And the statute is very clear that this is wholly within their authority. We represent an effort to try and gain consensus as best as possible within the Native American community to advise that process.
And your group has done tremendous work and research and background. I applaud you very much for that. Again, these are just totally clarifying questions that we're trying to get to.
Thank you.
As this process has gone forward from your presentation here at our 5 o'clock council meeting a few weeks ago, and as things have moved forward, a lot of things have taken place in Rapid City that have been positive and that may have been negative in some ways. We have seen groups and members of your organization that were here the night of the presentation. We have seen them on TV and in person at other events throughout Rapid City and our community that have not been, in my opinion, very positive to rebuilding relationships. So my question is, the people that are in your organization, are they involved in other organizations or elements that are trying to do other things to not bring people together in Rapid City as your project is trying to do? And I can, if you want me to put more flesh on the bones, I'd be happy to.
I understand your question. I disagree with your underlying premise that there are groups trying to harm the city. I think there are different people that have different strategies about how to go about this conversation and the conversations about Native issues in general. This group has chosen a diplomatic strategy right now. But I think we would all be remiss to not understand that the Native community hasn't had a whole lot of faith in working in the diplomatic strategy or within the process. The other Native organizations in town have been very gracious with this organization and have, for the large part, deferred to us to try to work through Plan A, to do this in a positive, diplomatic way as best as possible. And we're grateful for that. But understanding that these lands have been occupied for 70 years, these 3 parcels that we're discussing, and the Native community has raised it at least 24 times that I can think of off the top of my head, we can understand their frustration in not having a lot of faith in the process. With that said, to directly answer your question, we have over 100 volunteers and they work everywhere within the city. And this project is for the entire Native American community. And so it will not be successful if it doesn't include the entire spectrum of Native voices and Native perspectives. So I can only speak for our organization and our goal and our team, but each person within our volunteer are individuals.
Sure, and they have every right to do what they wish to do, and I support that 100%, to protest, to do what they choose is best for them, just like I do and like anyone else does. I have to say that when we see faces of people involved in different things, it also makes us wonder, makes me wonder, and be curious as to what exactly, who we're dealing with, what the motivation is, and are there other reasons that we don't know. So we have to earn that level of trust back and forth between your group and us as we move forward with this. And so that is an area of question and concern that some of us have at this time. Thank you for answering it.
And let me be 100% clear. You know, we are not a 501c. We are not controlled by any entity. We are 100% volunteer. We've always been transparent about our group, and we've always been transparent about our goals. And our team goal is to find a diplomatic solution. We have given up 10 years of our lives pro bono on, I don't know, maybe a $5,000 grant, and given time from our families and our other commitments to be able to put forward what we think is a very smart solution.
Mm-hmm. My next question is, there are people who have worked on this for some time who have said that this will, quote, solve all of the Native American conflict and issues in Rapid City. I don't believe that. I think
that would be amazing.
That would be right next to walking on water, in my opinion. So being upfront and honest about this, is that your belief in this?
It is not. This is one very specific statute, 3 very specific parcels, but it is important, right? We as a team can continue to make bad decisions together that are incremental, or we as a team can continue to make positive decisions that are incremental. And we very much think this is a positive, incremental forward step.
I'm glad we can agree on that part, because that,
Councilwoman Jones, I've given you 10 minutes on this, and I know there's other people that would like to get in. You get 5 minutes for questioning, so we're going to go on to another council person and maybe come back to you towards the end. Did you realize that you would have a time limit?
And Chairwoman, if there are any questions we're not able to answer today, we're happy to stay afterwards.
Thank you so much. On to Councilwoman Laura Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to make a motion to move this to Monday's council meeting without recommendation. I think it's important to have a further discussion on this with all of our council members, as well as the mayor, who has been very intimately involved with these discussions over the last 3-4 years. And I think we would give us some more time to do some homework, more time to ask questions, even pose some more questions, and get further insight from our other members of council. If I can get a second, I'd appreciate it.
Joel, am I allowed to second as chair? Did you second?
I don't think there's anything that prevents the chair. The chair is a participant in the meeting and the committee.
Okay, so we're going to second moving this to council without recommendation. Is that what you're saying?
Move to the November 2nd council meeting, which is Monday, without any recommendation. That gives us some time to take pause, do a little more research, formulate some more questions, and of course get the other 4 members of our council involved in this very important discussion.
That's fine, but I still am going to allow discussion today.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And so
we can continue. I'll yield for my time.
okay, so we're going to just leave that motion there for now, and we're going to have some other commentary. Chair recognizes Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Heather, everybody in the audience. When we speak about community, it means all of us. It's not just the Native and non-Native community. I do think it is all of us, and I appreciate hearing about the history of this situation over the years, and in particular, the children that were buried in unmarked graves is very sobering, and I'm happy to see there's an effort to put a memorial in place. So that's very good. And I appreciate the hard work that Heather and you and your team have done. You've clearly done your due diligence, and as elected officials, we have to do ours. I will agree to this. I will say that if these transfers were done illegally, then we have to work to make it right. Might be clapping too soon, but due to the significance and nature of the matter, I do think it's best that we let facts guide our decision making. And to that end, I do have several questions that I think need to be answered to allow progress to happen in these discussions, because I think getting to the right answers gets us to the right resolution. I have asked these questions both to Heather in a Zoom call last Friday, in addition to a phone call with our city attorney yesterday. I've kind of crystallized them a little bit more. I will share for the public and the council the questions I think we need to answer so that we can resolve this matter. The first question, and I think Councilman Jones was touching on this, and I'm just putting this out there for further discussion. So question 1, is the city negotiating with the appropriate legal entity?
The city is negotiating with the Department of Interior.
Yes, so that we know the legal entity is Department of Interior. So what the city would need, I believe, is a letter authorizing you to negotiate on their behalf.
To be
Would
clear,
that be true?
we are not negotiating on behalf of the Department of Interior.
Yeah.
The Department of Interior sent a letter, as you know, to the city and to the school district and the tribes in the community in 2017, notifying the city that these 3 parcels were subject to reversion.
Right.
And stop.
Okay.
However, in the next paragraph, they offered the city the opportunity to come up with a creative solution. Our group has taken it upon ourselves to put together a creative solution while trying to collect as much consensus as possible. There's always going to be 10% on both sides that won't agree with anything, but to try and gather as much consensus as possible. The reason why that is relevant is that the Department of Interior has a trust responsibility to us as individual Native Americans through federal law, and it matters to them what the opinion is of the Native community. It also matters to them what the opinion is of the tribes. So we have also been working very closely with various land committees on the tribes. So from a pure legal standpoint, this is strictly a negotiation between the city and the Department of Interior.
Right.
But the Department of Interior has informed the city and the school district that they want to hear the opinion of the community, and that's what we have done, is collected the opinion of the community.
And that's great. And that's more for my city attorney for him to say, are we negotiating with the right person? I want to get through these questions for the sake of time, because
Okay.
I think this is the stuff I think we have to deliberate on as we move forward, so I'll just get these questions out. The second question is, has the city independently confirmed that improper title transfers occurred on these 3 parcels in questions? And if so, can we see the title search document? So I'm going to lay that out there. That might be easy to answer, but number 3, is the $20 million valuation of the 3 parcels for the land alone, or does it include the structures? I'm assuming it also includes the structures.
Correct.
If that's the case, should it be based on the land value versus land value, and not the structures that are on it? And I don't know legally, I'm not an expert in real estate law.
May I answer that?
Yes, ma'am.
I think that there's probably plenty of arguments from a real estate perspective. The reason why the $20 million value was chosen, of course, the city's appraisals itself
Right.
is what valued both the land and the buildings. And for the Native community, that's what we would receive upon reversion. So that is the value
Okay.
to the Native community.
Thank you. My fourth question is really about who owns these properties, because you look on Rapid Map, the city is an owner with, in addition to, like, if you look at Monument Health and Clarkson's, who's a property owner, you're going to see both the city and those entities that own them on there. That's more about our lease agreement with them. I'll save that another time. And my last question, and this is really important, if a settlement is reached, does it resolve the matter, and who actually receives the funds?
If a settlement is reached, it resolves the matter for these 3 parcels and these 3 parcels alone. Department of Interior is the final determinating factor on that. The funds would be a combination of land that would go to the Department of Interior. So this swap land would be federal land. They would change their Department of Interior land on West Rapid for whatever land is swapped. The monies would be a to-be-formed Native organization that would run the community center. We have purposely not created a 501c3 or forming any entity because it's irrelevant unless we move forward with the city. And once this passes, then we would reopen it to the whole community to participate and shape what that would look like.
Okay. So my only hesitation is, if something's wrong, we should make it right. I will say that. I want to make sure that we are talking with the right entities that have the legal authority to resolve the issue, and which is, as you're telling me, and as I heard from our city attorney yesterday, that's the Department of Interior. And I feel like we need to hear from representatives from the Department of Interior or whoever they authorize. I guess that's...
The regional director, Tim LaPointe, has made
Yes.
himself available.
Okay.
We've been trying to line up a recent meeting with the mayor, but I think with their 2 schedules, it's just been difficult. But we can
I
certainly
think that's an important
make that
piece
happen
for
before the
this.
vote on Monday.
Legally. Joel, do you want to respond to any of those questions?
Briefly, I think I was hoping to get something out to the council prior to this, but something, I think frankly, this will help kind of frame my communication to you between now and the meeting on Monday. You know, I have some of the same concerns initially about, you know, as a lawyer, I want to know who are we negotiating with, and there's not a legal entity. And I will just tell you that after some discussions with Heather, is this perfect? No, but I feel comfortable with it. I do believe, I mean, we're both telling you the same thing, that ultimately the Department of the Interior is going to have to sign off on this. Now, if I believed the Department of the Interior had no clue about what we were doing, I would probably have more concern. I am aware that Heather, and I believe she is in contact with them, and they are aware of what we're doing. not to take a shot at them, but the letter from 2017 appears to be them saying, this is a big old mess. We think you might be right. Why don't you go try to figure it out and then come back to us once you did? And to Heather's credit, their group has kind of stepped up. Now, does that mean that, this resolution is not technically an agreement? It is the framework to reach an agreement. Nobody is going to be able to guarantee you by Monday night that if you approve this resolution, that the Department of the Interior is going to sign off on any recommendations. I mean, the reality is, this is the first step to continue moving forward. The mayor, most of you know the mayor well enough to know he likes to distill everything down to the simplest explanation that he can. And in his mind, how this works is, we have a dispute over the title to these 3 parcels. And again, if you're looking for a 100% definitive legal answer about whether or not these parcels would revert, I cannot give you that. Frankly, Heather cannot give you that, and no lawyer can, because once it goes to court, anything can happen. And everybody seems to approach things like this as a all or nothing. Like either all the parcels are title to all the parcels are going to be found to be consistent with the federal grant, or all of them are not going to be consistent with the federal grant. The reality is, you could have a situation where some of the title to some of the parcels is found to be consistent with the federal grant, and some of the parcels are not. That is, frankly, probably the most likely outcome, is that some of the parcels would revert and some of them wouldn't. I will tell you, the mayor does not view this as really a strictly legal issue. And while this has come to you as a settlement of a legal dispute, I think it's pretty obvious at this point that it's more than just a legal dispute. And one of the questions when you decide how to proceed that you need to, I think, answer for yourselves is whether or not it was strictly legal. Is investing this money, and that's the way I've heard the mayor describe it, is it really the worst thing in the world to invest $20 million into our Native community if it benefits them and benefits the community as a whole, and it also resolves this issue? And some of these things that frankly this group is talking about, separate from this, are probably things you would potentially look at investing in anyway, even absent this. There's kind of a path to go down, but if you approve this, there will be a small group formed, and we will work on coming forward with something that is concrete. At that point, definitely the Department of the Interior will need to be involved and at least aware of what we're doing, because I don't want to spend a bunch of time trying to work to bring something forward and then find out at the end that, no, they don't believe that's acceptable. But I think as positive a step forward as this might be, I think we all need to be realistic that that does not necessarily mean everything is going to work out, because we would still need to sit down and identify parcels and financial and other things that are going to need to be done, and we may not be able to reach an agreement on that. Maybe the small group is able to reach an agreement on it, but maybe the Department of the Interior doesn't agree to it. Maybe tribal entities come out and say they're not in agreement with it, which changes the Department of the Interior's view on it. From my perspective, what we need and the most we can hope for is that this small group and the volunteers that Heather is working with, we reach some proposals and we bring it forward. The Department of the Interior signs off on it, and the majority of the community of Rapid City agrees to it. Because again, I think we all need to recognize and accept that whatever we come up with, there is not going to be 100% agreement on. So I will give you a more detailed analysis, but if you're looking for a strictly legal analysis, I don't think a strictly legal analysis is going to work on this decision. It's more complicated than that, and this involves bigger issues than just the legal aspects of it. While there's certainly the legal aspects, but it goes far beyond that.
And I know I'm out of time. I think the missing ingredient here is the Department of Interior. I think if that would really help us feel like we're negotiating on solid ground for all of us, because I think many of us want to have good faith. I have a lot of respect for Heather and the work that she's doing, so they would be wise to try to contract her to help out. But all that said, that's the missing ingredient in this whole picture is the Department of Interior's presence in these discussions. And for the sake of time, I'll have to yield and move it along. Thank you.
Mr. Councilman, do you want us to try and get the Department of Interior here on Monday, or is it okay, because they're in Aberdeen, is it okay if we just have them meet with Joel and the mayor?
Work with our city attorney, and it's not a pressure to get this done by Monday. I think we can, to do it right, we should take our time to answer these questions that everybody has, and when those questions are answered, then we can do that. But right now, the motion is that it will go to city council, and we'll see what happens.
And we are very much ready for a vote on Monday.
I'm
Thank you.
sure, yeah. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll have to agree with Jason. 2 working days between now and the meeting is totally insufficient to answer all of the questions that have been raised by all the different council members. I know that Lance Lehman had sent an email to Heather, and she responded to that. I believe that there are additional questions that are raised by her responses. I agree with Joel that this is not a sure thing, and actually the only thing I can really agree on is that we won't be able to agree on all of this. I look at, for instance, the regional hospital property. Now, there are letters in the record that were not provided. They were not provided. I don't know if you've seen those, Heather, but they weren't provided to us.
Well, we've had them, and the Department of Interior has had them before the Department of Interior's letter came out, so that supersedes those letters, sir.
Well, I think that they're stuck with them, because this is them acting in an official capacity, and they're saying that the use of the regional hospital land is consistent with the grant. And the letter of 2017 is now more than 3 years old, and it doesn't say anything. It doesn't even address your entity. And so I agree with Jason also that we need to have a representative of the Department of Interior if, in fact, the issue hinges on the Department of Interior's decision. There's a whole nother set of circumstances that may arise after that. But there are issues as to what happens if we don't reach a resolution that you agree with. What if we come up with a different number on the valuation? Then are you going to court? Then should we just go to court now? Is the Department of Interior going to agree with this when they haven't even been to any of the negotiations? I don't see this 2017 letter as assigning any rights to your group because it doesn't even address your group. It's merely, as Joel said, hey, you guys figure this out. There's so many questions. This can't be handled. We can't have these questions answered by Monday night. And so, for one thing, I would like to be able to make a substitute motion that we postpone this at least until the time we have our first full council working session on November 10th, so that all these questions can be answered before then.
May I, Your Honor, answer your question, Councilman? I appreciate as a fellow attorney, Mr. Stroman, that working in black and white is our world, and gray is often very uncomfortable. And there's a lot of gray, as your own attorney has pointed out here. We are trying to avoid litigation. We have given enormous amount of pro bono time for many, many years with the hope of avoiding litigation. Will we move forward to enforce the law? Of course. But that is why we're here, to try and do it in a diplomatic manner first.
But I guess
With
the
regard
question
to your
is,
question,
ma'am, the
sir.
question, ma'am,
Yes.
is you're willing to not go to court because you don't have any standing. You've already admitted several times that the Department of Interior is the real party in interest here.
Sir, we have standing as needy Indians and the trust responsibility to the Department of Interior within federal Indian law.
Well,
It's not an issue. If I can answer your other
I
question.
think there's a real question about that, ma'am.
If I can answer your other question, these issues have been outstanding for 70 years. The city has been aware of them for 70 years. I appreciate that you have not had the time to attend any of the 100 meetings that we've held until this month to hear it, but many of the other folks have. In addition, we've already been delayed once at the request of the City Council to provide you and your colleagues sufficient time to answer questions. We have made ourselves more than available through Zooms, phone calls, emails. We've answered all of your questions over emails. We appreciate that in the end, you might not be able to vote for it, but our grandmothers have waited 70 years, and we're ready for a vote on Monday.
So you've been working on this for 7 years?
This community has been working on it for 70 years. We've been meeting with the city for 4 years, sir.
Okay.
And we've been meeting with you specifically and this council for a month. I appreciate that it's complicated, but we will make ourselves completely available to you all weekend long to work through any of your questions. And I think you know my colleague, Mr. Zephyr, who would also be available to you.
I have discussed it with Mr. Zephyr. I have a great amount of respect for Mr. Zephyr.
The
and his
wonderful
ability.
attorney.
And I have made my motion that this be moved at least until the work session. And if I can get a second, otherwise, I guess we'll, the chair will direct us in the next item of business. Yes.
Well, okay, we'll take it to a vote then. But we're not going to vote on anything yet. I'm going to speak again. I'm going to speak for the first time, and then we have a special guest. So I am the elder here. I have been in Rapid City all my life, and I just want to know, what is the difference between the 1948 statute and the 1968, whatever they enacted there? What are those differences?
68? I'm not familiar. Maybe I misspoke.
You said 1948, 1968, those were the times that they made the changes to move the American Indians off this land and to somewhere else?
Is she talking about Susan, maybe? I apologize. I'm not familiar with another statute. If I did say 68,
Okay.
I misspoke. 1948 is the statute at hand here.
Okay, so what happened in 1948 and what happened in 1968? How's that for a clear question?
Am I missing something? I apologize. I'm not sure if maybe I misspoke on 1968. There was a moment. Are you talking about the Sioux edition?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry
yes.
about that. Thank you. So that was in the early 1950s. So as you've heard from our presentation, many Native communities were living along the creek, which is historically where they have lived as well. They came here to be near the boarding school and the tuberculosis clinic. They requested, when the statute passed in 1948, 2 weeks after it passed, the Native community collected and they requested land in that 1,200 acres for housing. And the citizens of West Rafford put together a petition to oppose that. And City Council put together a plan with the school district to move those folks off of Oshkosh Camp to what became Sioux Addition, 2 miles north. And that was approximately 1951.
Okay. All right. You know, American Indians that I work with, they kind of have a way of introducing themselves, and it's through their parentage and through their heritage and things like that. I came here in 1958 with my father, who was in the National Guard. We moved down by the creek. We were on Boston Street, and we had our neighbors were the Withhorns. You might know them, and they were my best friends growing up. And you know, they still had powwows down there and sometimes, and Mother would say, "Do not go over there. That's Indian social time and their religion. You don't go close." And I wanted to because it looked like a lot of fun. But yeah, we respected that, you know. And so I grew up with American Indians most of my life as friends. And more recently, I worked with Gear Up. And yes, I know the academic Indians that you're talking about. We are not working with our grandfathers' Indians anymore. We're working with educated people that have come back here to save what they can of some of these lands, and I respect it very much. The Community Development Center, it's been coming for a long time. What you guys want to do with the tribal center, it's necessary here in Rapid City. I would like to see that happen regardless of what happens with this land exchange, and I do believe it's a win-win. I want to remind the group here that resolutions are brought from the public. They don't have to be any specific group. They can be brought from the public, and we understand our responsibility. And the city has an intention when they say they're going to support a resolution. It's an intention. We're not writing this as a law, as an ordinance. We have an intention to follow what we have agreed to. That's what a resolution is, in my understanding. So I am for this. I'm going to support this. I don't need to know any more about it. I know about as much as I can. This is the first salvo. This is the first firing of these shots, and we have a lot of work to do from here. This is the first time we're going to say yes to this resolution. Things have been much worse in Rapid City before. I lived here. There were like wars between the white kids and the Indian kids, and I know, beat the heck out of each other. Anybody that's lived here knows that relations have been much worse than now. Much worse. At least we're in a room talking, which is really a great step forward for us. And so the cause is just, and the time is right. And let's move this forward. It's about justice. It's about reparations. It's about things that I didn't do, but I can help make them right. And so I'm passionate about saying that this is the time to do it. Let's not wait until November. They've been waiting 70 years. They've been working on this 10 years. And if we didn't know about it, that's our problem. Because everybody here that's a native knows about this. If you're white and you don't know about it, that's your problem. You should have known about it. That's what my Indian friends would say to me. Why are you so uneducated? Why don't you get educated about what the issues are? So, I think that's enough of a lecture from me. But we have some making up to do here, and it's time, and it's just. Thank you. And now I'm going to bring in Mayor Allender. Are you going to speak, Mayor? Okay, you don't speak. You don't need to speak. We're going to just go back, and two more people are going to get a little bit more time. I'm going to give you 2 minutes, Pat, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes, Laura.
Thank you very much. Apologize for going over last time. Just a couple of comments quickly. Joel said that a majority of the citizens need to agree to it, and I think that's a very important comment that he made. And so since a lot of people don't know about it, it's incumbent on us as the elected representatives to ask these questions, dive into it, and know what we're doing. There's no personal attacks here. There's no anything like that. It's doing our due diligence as elected officials to find out what we're being asked to vote on and what to do. So that's why I'm asking the questions that a lot of us have wondered about. I appreciate and acknowledge the creative solution, Heather, that your group has put forward and brought forward. Okay? It's going to take us some time to plow through it, and that's just how it is. But I want to make sure my stand is understood. I respect what's taken place, but have an obligation to ask these questions and know what we're voting on and know what we're talking about. I didn't know about this, and I'm a Rapid City guy, so I'm learning. Other people are learning. So these are the questions that have been asked. These are the things people need to know as we move forward. So that's why I'm asking questions. And thank you, Karen Mortimer, for the fantastic conversation we had the other day. Very enlightening. Heather, thank you for your dialogue with me today. I'll yield my time. Thank you.
And thank you, Councilman, and I apologize to Councilman Stroman for getting emotional. We carry a very heavy burden of our grandmothers, and we have a lot of people depending upon us voting on this on Monday. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Laura Armstrong.
Thank you. I appreciate Mr. Stroman's insight and legal expertise. It always helps to have another attorney in the room to get another view of this. I think all of us want clear answers to our questions, and I appreciate that we're keeping this going. My only concern about postponing this another 2 weeks rather than just to Monday, we'll have 5 days between now and Monday to ask questions, gather more research, talk with one another, and then have another discussion on Monday evening. And then, at that point, if we don't come to a resolution on that Monday, then that second step, I think, would be to put forth to our working session. So I just wanted to leave it at that. I really think it's important to keep this conversation going. It's fresh. We have these questions in our mind. As Mr. Stroman said, even more questions have come up based on the answers that were given to us. And I think it's important that we answer them immediately, because then it might spur even more questions. And if we have questions, our constituents are going to have more questions. This is going to be in the media. People are going to be reaching out to us. They already are. And that way, we can have other legal counsel work with Mr. Landine and Ms. Thompson as well. I think it's fresh. We need to keep this going, and I just really feel that we need to continue this with Mr. Evans and Mr. Nordstrom and Mr. Roberts and Mr. Lehman. I think it's important that all 9 of us have this discussion and keep it going now, not postpone it 2 weeks later. Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion on the floor, and it has been seconded, so we need to vote on that. The motion is to move this item to our first working session, November 10th. And I guess I'm looking for, okay, all in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Motion fails. Next motion, motion to move this to a council on Monday night without recommendation from the Legal and Finance Committee. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? No. 1 no from Greg Stroman. And so this will be moved to council on Monday night without recommendation from our committee. I think we've heard a lot of answers here today, and I would encourage everybody that's part of this committee or part of the council to go ahead and seek answers on their own before we meet on Monday.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
One more item.
Oh, excuse me? Oh,
Number
we
15.
do? Excuse me. Thank you. That was just so exciting. I just couldn't. Anyway, item 15, authorize mayor and finance director to sign an assignment agreement with Sentinel Federal Credit Union for the contract for construction of public improvements by private developer for Homestead Street Tax Increment District.
Hey, can I?
Okay, Joel, go
I
ahead.
would ask that you just take it to council without recommendation. There was actually a development agreement earlier. Drafts are linked. I also, for purposes of the record, I just wanted to clarify, it actually ended up, it's Midwest Business Solutions doing business as Pactola. It's a consortium of credit unions that funds bigger projects. So Sentinel is the underlying, I believe, financial institution, but the agreement will actually be with Midwest. They're pretty standard. There is a draft now. So if you want, I can email it out and you will have at least a chance to review it before the meeting on Monday night. But they're pretty standard.
So you're asking to move this to Monday night without
Yeah,
recommendation?
we want it approved Monday night. It's just
Okay.
you haven't even had a chance to look at it yet. So I hate to ask you to recommend approval or denial.
And I'm in the queue, Madam
Hold
Chair.
on. Excuse me, you just said 2 different things to me.
No, take it to council without recommendation.
Okay.
We'll tie them together. I just the title was wrong, and I wanted to clarify
Got
that.
it. Okay. So I need a motion?
I'll make the motion to send to council without recommendation. If I get a second and retain the floor quickly.
Solomon makes the motion to move to Monday night. We get a second from Armstrong. Jason, you have the floor.
And the other thing is, this item was not attached to the agenda, so the public has zero idea what we're talking about. So will you make sure that that's attached to the city council agenda? I
Yes.
see we have physical documents here, but you sent an email. But
It's attached now, but it was done shortly
I just
before the
refreshed right
meeting.
now. It's not on our
Okay.
legal and finance
Well,
agenda.
Sometimes
Unless I'm
IT has
cached or
some,
something wrong,
yeah,
but-
IT has something, but it'll be linked to, there might be, I will just tell you, there might be a few additional tweaks prior to Friday, but they should be minor. But by Friday afternoon, there will be an item linked to the agenda, but this will be the base of it.
Okay. Just want to make sure we never approve anything without the attachments being on there for the public. So
Okay, so we have a motion to move till Monday night. All in favor? Those opposed? And number 15 goes to Monday night. Motion to adjourn? Moved by Jones, second by Armstrong. All in favor? We're adjourned.